There's a strange kind of silence in modern life. Not the peaceful kind, not the kind you feel on a quiet morning with a cup of tea in your hands, but a different silence. The kind that sits inside you even when everything around you is loud, busy, and constantly moving. And the truth is, most people feel it, but almost nobody talks about it. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad you're here today. I want to share something with you that might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but also maybe a little relieving. Because if you've ever had the feeling that something about modern life just doesn't feel right, you're not alone. A few weeks ago, I was sitting in a small cafe watching people come and go. Nothing unusual, just an ordinary day. There was a young man at the table next to me. He had a laptop open, his phone in one hand, earphones in his ears. And yet, every few seconds, he looked up like he was searching for something. Not on his screen, but somewhere else. It was subtle. Most people wouldn't notice it. But I did, and it stayed with me. Because I realized that look, I've seen it before. Not just in others, but in myself, too. We live in a time where everything is available. Information, entertainment, connection. It's all right there, within reach, every second of the day. You don't have to wait for anything anymore. And at first, that sounds like progress. It sounds like life has become easier. But somewhere along the way, something else happened. We stopped sitting with our thoughts. There used to be moments in life where you had no choice but to be still. Waiting for a bus, sitting on a porch, walking without headphones, lying in bed with nothing but your mind for company. And in those quiet spaces, you would think, reflect, remember, question, sometimes even feel things you had been avoiding. Now, those moments are gone. Every empty second is filled. A quick scroll, a short video, a notification, something to distract, something to entertain, something to keep the silence away. And slowly, without realizing it, we became uncomfortable with our own minds. That's one of the truths nobody really admits. Not openly, at least. We say we're busy. We say life is fast. But often, we're not running towards something meaningful. We're running away from stillness. And the strange part is, the more we avoid it, the heavier it feels when it finally catches up. There was a time in my life when everything looked fine from the outside. Work was steady, responsibilities were handled, conversations were normal. But inside, there was a quiet restlessness. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could point at and say, this is the problem. Just a constant feeling that something was missing. I tried to fix it the way most people do. I kept myself busy. More tasks, more noise, more distractions. I told myself it was just a phase, that it would pass. But it didn't. One evening, the power went out. No lights, no internet, no background noise. Just darkness and stillness. At first, it felt uncomfortable, almost irritating. I didn't know what to do with myself, so I just sat there. Minutes passed, then more, and slowly, something shifted. Thoughts started coming in, not loud, not overwhelming. Just quiet, honest thoughts that I'd been pushing away for a long time. Questions about how I was living, what I actually wanted, what truly mattered to me. Things I hadn't allowed myself to face because I was too busy staying distracted. It wasn't a dramatic moment. There was no sudden clarity, no big realization that changed everything overnight. But it was honest. And that honesty felt heavier than any noise I had been hiding behind. That night I understood something simple but important. Modern life gives you endless ways to avoid yourself. but it doesn't remove the need to understand yourself. And that's where the real discomfort comes from. We're connected to everyone, but disconnected from ourselves. We talk to people all day, but rarely say what we truly feel. We stay informed about everything happening in the world, but ignore what's happening inside us. And over time, that gap grows. It shows up in small ways, a sense of emptiness you can't explain, a lack of excitement for things that used to matter, a feeling that you're just going through the motions even when life looks fine on paper. And because it's not dramatic, we don't take it seriously. We tell ourselves it's normal. Maybe it is, but that doesn't mean it's healthy. Another truth people don't like to admit is that modern life quietly teaches us to measure ourselves in ways that don't actually fulfill us. Numbers, achievements, comparisons, always looking at what's next, what's bigger, what's better. And there's nothing wrong with growth. There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve your life. But when every step forward comes with a quiet voice saying, it's still not enough, it becomes exhausting. I remember talking to an old friend a while ago. We hadn't seen each other in years. On the surface, he had everything people usually aim for: a good job, a comfortable home, stability. But at one point in the conversation, he paused and said something very simple. I don't remember the last time I felt truly content. Not happy, not excited, just content. And that stayed with me too. Because contentment doesn't come from constant movement. It doesn't come from always chasing something else. It comes from being able to sit with your life as it is and feel at peace with it, even for a moment. And that's something modern life rarely encourages. We're always being pulled forward, always being told there's something more to do, more to achieve, more to fix. So we keep going. But sometimes the real answer isn't in doing more. Sometimes it's in pausing, in allowing yourself to be still long enough to hear what's been buried under all the noise. And yes, that can be uncomfortable. You might not like what you find at first. You might realize you've been ignoring things, avoiding conversations, postponing decisions. But that discomfort, it's honest. And honesty, even when it's quiet and a little heavy, is the beginning of something real. That's the turning point most people never talk about. Not because it's complicated, but because it requires something we've forgotten how to do. It requires us to stop. Not forever, not dramatically, just long enough. Long enough to ask yourself simple questions without rushing to answer them. Long enough to sit in silence without reaching for a distraction. Long enough to feel something without immediately trying to change it. It doesn't fix everything overnight, but it changes something subtle inside you. You start noticing things again. Small moments that used to pass by unnoticed. A quiet morning, a meaningful conversation, a sense of presence that doesn't need to be filled with anything else. And slowly, that constant restlessness begins to soften. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you become more connected to it. That's the truth about modern life nobody admits. It's not just busy, it's distracting. Not just fast, but often disconnected. And yet, within all of that, there's still space for something real. But you have to be willing to step into that space, even if it's just for a few minutes a day, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because at the end of the day, all the noise, all the movement, all the distractions, they can only take you so far. Eventually, You come back to yourself. And when you do, the question isn't how much you've done or how much you've achieved. The question is, do you feel at peace with where you are? That's not something the world can answer for you. That's something only you can sit with, quietly, honestly, and without rushing. If any part of this felt familiar to you, I'd really like to hear your thoughts. Not in a perfect or polished way, just honestly. And if you feel like this kind of conversation matters, you're always welcome to stay connected here. Take care of yourself, and don't be afraid of a little silence now and then. It might be the most honest place you have left.